everybody? We have another episode Against the Grain podcast. Thank you guys for all your support. With that being said, we have a special guest today. We got Nat in the house. Nat, what is up?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. We got Cristina back.
Hey.
I was telling you, Cristina, earlier, I was like, I feel like it's been a while since you've been on.
I know. It's been like a month. It feels so weird we used to do these. Like,
Who was the last one, JJ?
JJ.
Yeah. If you guys if they haven't watched that, they got to watch that one. That was a good one. And it's cool because I've been, started following JJ more and stuff. And he's doing a lot of stuff like in the park. Yeah. We've been seeing his stuff. He's been like doing a lot of stuff.
He started doing worship nights at his university. Crazy. Man.
So that's cool. But yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yes.
I'm excited for this episode with Nat. So excited. Nat, thank you for coming on. I know when I talked to you, I was like, hey, it is like super last minute and you're like so down to do it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I feel like obviously we just met and stuff like that. You just kind of started coming, but I feel like I've seen you so much on like social media as far as like the church page and all that stuff. Like I know they just posted more content of you and everything. Yeah. But so like I feel like I've known you, but I'm like I don't know you. So it's just cool. And then last week we were talking a little bit on Sunday like about your story a little bit, and you were sharing about like your family and stuff. And I was like, wow, you have a crazy testimony. That's when I hit up Cristina. I was like, hey, you should come on. Like let's like interview her and stuff and. Let's do it. So thanks for coming on, especially last minute. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
But let's get into a little bit about your story. I know, like I said, a lot of people see you. Obviously, you're here in church. You're crazy worshiping. Like you're just always in the front, like giving it everything. It's so cool. It's so encouraging to see. But we want to get to know you. We want to get your story and stuff. So throw us way back. Talk to us a little bit about growing up, your story, like kind of early on.
Okay, so so I was born and raised in Fontana. I moved around a lot, like as a kid, because my parents were separated. So my dad, he worked full time on a boat. He was in oil engineering. So he would be gone for 3 weeks and then he would come back for 3 weeks. So him and my mom like split me half and half. So whenever he was here, I was out with him in Fontana, and then my mom, she was constantly moving around from city to city. And then there was a while where I lived in Louisiana with my dad for a little bit, and then I would go to Mexico to visit him sometimes too, and I was just all over the place.
Are you Hispanic or?
Yeah, my parents,
like
both
full
my parents.
Mexican?
Yeah, both my parents
Dang.
are Mexican.
And you're in Louisiana?
Yeah.
What's that like? I feel like it's all just like white. Is it white? A lot of white people or black people?
A lot of
like,
black people.
Yeah?
Yeah, a lot of black people.
Oh yeah, Louisiana. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because since he was stationed out in New Mexico, him and my family, like his side of the family, well, my stepmom and my two sisters, they moved out to Louisiana to pretty much be closer to him. So I would go and visit over there whenever like those 3 weeks were time. I would go over there. But for the most part, like I lived out with my mom, and then so I was born and raised Catholic too. So my grandma, she is a Catholic, like hardcore Catholic. But I was baptized and I did my confirmation, Catholic as well. But to be honest, I never understood like anything. I feel like I spent more time worshiping saints than I did Jesus. Like if you would have asked me something about Jesus, I would have been like, oh yeah, he died on the cross and that's pretty much it. Like I knew nothing about him. There was no type of relationship. There was nothing there that I could really, go off of, like a relationship. Like I said, I spent more time like talking to the Virgin Mary, which I just knew she was like Jesus' mom. And that's from like my ages from like maybe 4 to I want to say like 8. And then after 8, like I just don't remember having any type of relationship. My grandma had to drag me to church every time and I just didn't want to. My dad was never in church. My mom was never in church. So it was always my grandma. So I'm very thankful for her because she plays like a big part in my testimony too, which God just revealed to me too. Like he gave me revelation on it. But long story short, I remember as I got older, it got to an age where she couldn't drag me to church anymore, where it's like, whatever. But I would always fall asleep in church anyways. So basically, after that, I fell really heavy into witchcraft because my mom, she was into it. So I remember the first time like I really had like an encounter with any of that was maybe around, I was in middle school, so I was like 10. That's like, yeah, like 10, like 7th grade. I remember I was in 7th grade. And I remember the first time like I was introduced to it, we would go to the Swami and she would take me to this stand where they had like candles and they had like a whole bunch of like crystals and like everything. And she would mostly go for these candles. Well, she never really told me what they were and I didn't understand. But the more time I spent there, the more I started seeing like things of like Santeria, like little like skeletons and like, you know, things like this for love, and like the bracelets and the evil eyes and like all this other stuff. And I became curious because obviously we had to wait for the candles. So I would pick these little things up and like, you know, play with them. And like the store lady, like she didn't mind me either. So I remember one day she brought these candles home, and I was looking at them and I asked her like, hey, like, what is it? And she was like, oh, it's for love, it's for money, and this is for this and that. And then I was like, okay. And I'm like trying to pick it up to read. She said, do not touch it.
Wow.
Do not touch it. And I was like, why? She said, you don't touch them. And I was like, okay. Didn't really tell me why. And then I was like, okay, is it witchcraft? And she's like, no, it's not. And I'm assuming like as a mom, like she probably just didn't want me to know. So she's like, yeah, it's not. And I was like, but why then? What is it for? Like, where is it coming from? Like, even at a very young age, I was very curious. I was like, where is it coming from then? She didn't really want to tell me. And I was like, okay. But it had like scriptures on the back of the candles.
Like
and
Bible?
they were like Padre Nuestros and like all this stuff. Yeah. But it was like Santeria, you know? So, because
what exactly is that, real quick? Because like I've heard of it, but like what exactly is like Santeria? Like what's the main focus? Because obviously it's like Bible. It's like is it?
They worship saints, like the what is it, Santa Muerte.
That I'm not 100% sure of like Santeria itself. I just know that like in New Age they're really big. Not everybody, but some people are really big on using scripture to manipulate it and try to some way somehow get protection from scripture while doing all of this witchcraft. Like when I was in witchcraft, there was this healer that did witchcraft like for me, and she had me recite Psalm 23 every night before bed.
Dang, so Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah.
Dang,
so it's crazy how they use scripture to manipulate it, but they're doing it for straight up witchcraft. You know, they think it's gonna give them some sort of protection.
Exactly. Dang. That's exactly what it was. Because like on the back of the candles, like for the one for love, like it had another Bible scripture. I don't remember which one it was, but I'm assuming maybe one from Psalms too, because the Psalms is love. And then just like other stuff, but they were all like Bible scriptures. So basically, and I remember like even going to this thing, and the lady, she was talking about being Catholic. So, you know, at a very young age, I was very confused, like very, very confused. So basically this one day, after my mom told me, don't touch the candles, whatever, I was like, okay, whatever. I started having a lot of sleep paralysis. And I didn't understand what that was. I just would wake up and I couldn't move. And I would share a room with my mom. But my mom, she would work really late, and she would leave during the night and come back like kind of midday. And I remember this one night, I went to bed. My mom woke up for the morning. She left. And one rule she gave me was, don't touch the candles. And if it breaks, you call me. And I was like, okay, that's all I knew. She kept them in the bathroom, and our room was connected to the bathroom. So this one night she left. I woke up in the morning, and I woke up to not being able to move. And all of a sudden, I heard the candle break.
What? Wow.
And I couldn't see it because it was in the bathroom, but I knew it broke. And I remember I heard it break, and I couldn't move. I was literally like just laying in my bed, like looking up at the ceiling, and I was like, okay. But I like fear struck me.
What does that mean? Like you can't move? Because I've heard a lot of people do this, but I feel like you can't even get like an arm. Like you really can't move.
No.
Was it like terror taking over your body?
Yes, like instant terror. But I couldn't see anything, and I didn't know anything. I just heard the candle break, and instantly, like I literally could not move. Like something was sitting on me.
That's crazy.
And I was 10. I was 10 at the time, so I didn't understand what was going on. This was like one of the very few times like I got first times I got sleep paralysis. But the other times I was kind of just like, oh, I can't move, I'll just go back to sleep. This time I couldn't go back to sleep, so it was instant fear that struck me, and I was kind of just like, what is going on right now? I kid you not, at the doorway there was like this woman, like just for what I had envisioned was like a woman, like a veil over her face. I was so petrified where I couldn't even scream. I knew my grandma was in the house, and I was trying to scream out for her, and I the words wouldn't even come out.
And you were awake?
Yeah,
you
I
saw
was awake
with like your naked eye?
Yes.
Dang.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm hallucinating. Like looking back at it now, like I know that's a demon.
Yeah.
But like it was so real to me, and I literally could not move. So looking back at it now, like that candle breaking probably let something out. So finally, when I was actually able to, like, I closed my eyes and I was just like, please go away, please go away, please go away. And I opened my eyes and I was able to move. And as soon as I was able to move, I yelled out for my grandma.
Wow.
Yelled out for my grandma. The lady wasn't there and I ran out of the room. And basically, like, I remember I would go to my other grandma's house, the one that was Catholic, and I would tell her these things and she would send me back home with like holy water or like, you know, she would pray over me, things like that. And it would give me peace. But again, like, I didn't know God. I didn't know, like, you know.
Yeah.
So
What'd your mom say? Did you tell her about this candle?
I did. I told her. I called her. I was like, hey, like, the candle broke. And she's like, okay. She's like, don't touch it. I'll pick it up when I get home. And then I was like, okay. And after that, like, she never said anything about it. I didn't even tell her about the dream. I didn't tell her, or not the dream, but I didn't tell her about like the situation or anything.
Yeah.
So pretty much went on with my life. And I remember, like, there was a lot of weird things that would go on in the house. I was constantly getting sleep paralysis. I was constantly having like really bad nightmares of like something trying to kill me in my dreams.
Wow.
And I remember before school, there was a friend that would come over and like we'd walk to school together. And this one time I was getting ready and she said that she saw something walking across the hallway. And I remember telling her, like, no, there's nobody home. And she goes, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. She's like, can we please leave? And I was like, why? So then we finally leave and we're walking to school. She was not talking to me. And then I was like, what's going on? Like, what did you see? She's like, I saw somebody walking back and forth in your hallway.
Dang.
So there was definitely something going on in the house. And at the
Yeah.
time, like, because all these things happened and I didn't know about God, and I also didn't really believe in like the devil, I believed in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
So I believe that there is like, if we died, we would either be reincarnated or we'd pretty much just be like wandering the earth in like the spiritual realm. So I believed in ghosts.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were demonic.
Yeah.
So I became like at a very young age, like super intrigued with that kind of stuff. And as I got older, like my mom, she was more open about like what she did, like her getting her cards read and everything. And I remember she would tell me like, oh yeah, my card lady told me this about you. And like, you know, this and that. And I was like, how did you know that? Like,
It was accurate?
yes. I was like, how did you know that? Like things that I was going through or things that like had happened in like my past, like I just wouldn't talk to her about. And I was
Yeah.
like, how did you know that? So obviously this intrigued me, which later ended up me getting my cards read. So I think the first time I got my cards read, I was like, maybe I was really, really young, probably like 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's young.
So I remember after that, like I would get them read like every once in a while. It wasn't as consistent. I would get them like maybe once a year. Maybe
What are they
once-
saying? Like, when they read your cards, what exactly are they doing? Like telling you your future? Like, what is it?
So it's crazy because this lady, I never met her, but my mom had been going to her since before I was born.
Oh, wow.
Told her that what I was going to be, told her, just told her like a whole bunch of stuff. She also told my mom she was going to be pregnant with my sister and my brother and the genders of the baby.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, so all these things were accurate. Like I want to get this done too. So basically I never met her in person. My mom would go to in person, but I would talk to her over the phone. So basically you pretty much like just give her your birthday, your birth month, your birthday, and then your name, your full name. And I was like, okay. I would give her like this information and pretty much she would like flip the cards depending on what I wanted to know. She's like, what do you want to know? Your love life, your future, finances, like what do you want to know? For me, I've always been like such a lover girl. I was like, I want to know about my love life. Tell me about my love life.
At
Doesn't
13,
everybody?
at 13
I
is
feel like
crazy.
all the girls in New Age want to know about their love life.
No, literally, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So, yeah, at 13, like I had like my first boyfriend and I was like, oh, does he like me? Like little questions like that. And like, you know, that was like very harmless and I wouldn't really go at that age. It was mostly when I got older. So by the age like 16 and up, that's when I would consistently get them read. So I remember I got a boyfriend, I want to say like when it really, 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 really became consistent because it becomes like an addiction. It really does. Like you get addicted to wanting to know more. Like I want to know what's going to happen. Like what, or every single problem that I had, I'd go get my cards read.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
wanna
costing
know.
money or is it the
Yeah.
payer? Like, how
yeah.
much? Like $20?
No.
$100?
It was-
500?
No. Because she knew me, she would only charge me 40.
Ooh, the homie hookup.
Yeah,
$40
because she knew my mom. But everybody
crazy.
else was 80 to 100.
Yeah.
Really?
It's crazy.
Dang.
It's like they're like your drug dealers.
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
$100?
Yeah.
How many people do they do a day?
A lot.
Like a
they
couple
make
hundred?
bank.
Yeah, they do.
They
And it's
make
so
big.
crazy because like
That's
now
wild.
realizing it, like these are prophetic people and they use that gift
Yeah.
for that. And I never realized that. Also something that I really realized was like yes, they know your past because you're speaking to demons. The demons know your past and they know your present, but they don't know your future. But they know repetitive things that happen. So say like mine was always like, oh, are me and my ex-boyfriend gonna get back together? Well, you've gotten back together like 100 times, so I assume you're gonna do it again. So you know things like that because the only one who knows the future is God, right?
Yeah.
So
She's preaching.
yeah. And that's something that I literally like I didn't realize until like I came to God. So I remember like when I got really addicted to it was like within the past 2.5 years like ago. I got into a relationship and it was I don't want to say it was a toxic relationship. It was just very unstable. I feel like he didn't know how to react to certain things. Like he acted like he didn't care and like, you know, things like this. And I was an overthinker. So instead of like communicating to him, like, hey, can you tell me like how you feel? I'd run to go get my cards read. How is he feeling? Why does he feel like this? Why is he acting like this towards me? Is he cheating on me? Is he doing this? And he had no idea I was doing any of this.
Would she tell you like the cheating part? Like yes or no or something? Or what?
Yeah, she would.
Dang,
So
that's
it was
crazy.
always no. And it was always like he had something going on. And every time like she would tell me what was going on. Because I would have to give her his birthday and his name, his full name. So which is also it's very invasive. Like, you know, like that's none of my business.
Probably on Facebook.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, you know what's so funny though that you're saying that. So she always told you like, no, he's not cheating on you. I'm not saying that he was, but I think it's so funny that like these healers, when women come to them or maybe even guys, and they're asking specifically about their love life, because they're profiting off of this relationship, they're gonna try to keep the relationship going and together. So they'll
Definitely.
never try to break you guys up, and it's always what you want to hear. And it's always like,
Definitely.
he
Yes.
loves you, he wants to be with you, he's just going through a rough patch, he's gonna come back for you. Like, you know, let's just do some energy healing on him. And
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me light this candle of love for you. Like I know
Yeah.
you guys are going through a hard time right now. Like, look, this will create peace between you guys. And you know, that's another like what, $80.
yeah.
Another $80 for a candle?
Yeah, for a candle.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Go to the 99-cent store.
Oh my gosh.
Dang.
Literally. So I remember like it became an addiction, and especially since me and him were like really on and off, whenever we would break up, I swear I was getting my cards read like twice a week.
Wow.
And which is a lot, like 2 to 3 times a week, like every other day, like just reassurance that he's coming back. Are you sure he's coming back? Like he hasn't came back yet. Like, are you sure he's coming back? Like, I don't know. Like you keep saying he's coming back, but it's been like 2 months. Like, are you sure he's coming back? And he would come back eventually, but you know, and that's what gave me more faith. Faith in the cards, you know. So it became like very addicting. That's like instead, and it's crazy now because I'm like, dang, like I could have saved so much money if I known God.
Like how much money do you think you really spent like on this lady?
Like thousands.
Yeah, probably.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
My dad be asking me where your money be going. I'm like,
That's crazy.
yeah. So that was definitely like a starter point of it. And then like with the tarot cards, like I got into like the crystals and stuff too. My mom was really big into crystals too. I had an aunt. She actually got saved too at the same, like maybe like 2 weeks after, like, or no, maybe like a month after I got saved. She comes to harvest time too.
Your aunt does?
Yeah, her name is Melissa. Yeah,
way.
I think you've met her. I was at California Will Be Saved with her.
Oh,
at Hollywood,
okay,
her.
yes,
Yeah. So she
yeah.
comes here now, but it's so crazy how God works because she was really into that too. She would read my cards. She's like,
Really? She was the one you went to?
no. I wouldn't get my cards read by her, but she started reading cards. And I would ask her to read my cards too. So she got into it, and she got into like her crystals and like everything. So she had like a whole wall of like crystals, and like her kids would go around trying to don't touch my crystals, don't touch my crystals. Yeah, she was like really protective over them. And I remember me and her like would bond a lot when we were, because she was Catholic too. She wasn't Catholic, but we were born raised Catholic. Because of my grandma. And I remember she's had like, I wish she would have came today. She has like a couple of stories. Like she's prophetic. Like she has prophetic dreams. Like, and it's crazy because again, the devil will use people like that.
Yeah.
And so she would read my cards, and you know, she was even that's something we would bond over too, like the crystals and like all that stuff, because everybody thought we were crazy because we were.
This is your aunt?
Yeah, her name is Melissa. Yeah, she comes here.
So that's from your mom's side?
No, my dad's
That's your
side.
dad's side.
Yeah. So, yeah. So she's from my dad's side. And then from my mom's side, honestly, I think my mom and one of her cousins are like the only ones that do like that kind of stuff.
So that's crazy. It's like your mom and your dad's side are both into the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy though, because I really do. So my aunt, no, it's so crazy. My dad's family, like, I swear they're all prophetic. Like,
Really?
my grandma, prophetic dreams all the time, but she's
Yeah.
Catholic. And then I have another aunt. She has like a lot of prophetic dreams, but she doesn't like. She believes in God, but she doesn't like follow, you know, God. So and then Melissa, she's very prophetic in her dreams too.
Wow.
So basically that's something we bonded over. And when I got saved, I remember she was like sitting at the top of like a hospital, like Kaiser Hospital, because she works in the medical field. So she just went up to the rooftop and was like watching the sunset. And I remember I had called her and I was just telling her, like talking to her about how I got saved. And I was like, do you believe in God? She's like, I believe in like reincarnation. And then I was like, we were just having a talk, you know, I was telling her a little bit of my testimony. And she was like, it got her like thinking. And we were both looking at the sunset, like over the phone. And we were talking about the sunset. I was like, do you really think, like, who do you think made that?
Dang.
Like, look at how beautiful that is. Like, you don't think there's more to life? Sorry, excuse me. You don't think there's more to life? Like, there's so much, like, everything has a creator. Like, there has to be more. And I'm like really new to the faith too, so I didn't even really know how to put it into words. I just knew. Like,
Yeah.
I just knew. And with the encounter that I had with God, like, I knew. There was no doubt in my mind. But again, like, I wasn't really reading the Bible at this time either, so I didn't know too much. So I'm just trying to explain it to her like the best I could. And then we ended off like the phone call, and Easter came around. I was like, hey, like, do you want to come to church with me today? Like, I'm going to church. I was the only one going to church. I would go by myself. I started off at a church in San Bernardino. And I was going to this church for, like, that past month. And I was like, hey, like, do you want to come to church with me today? It's Easter. And she's like, okay, yeah. We went for the sunrise. And I guess that message, like, really touched her heart. And that day she ended up getting saved, too.
Wow.
And since then, like, I'm so grateful because God knows who you need in your life. Like, that was
Amen.
my fellowship, my only fellowship for like months until I came to harvest time.
Was that this year? You
That
got
was
saved this
yeah.
year? Oh my
I got saved in
God.
March.
Wow.
What made you first go?
So this boyfriend that I had, so the same one I would run to get my cards read from, we were together for like 2.5 years. So I just want to say, like, all respect to him. Like, I love him, you know. I hold a lot of respect for him, especially, like, I'm very grateful that I did meet him. I was so bitter for a long time because of like our situation and stuff. But I thank God for allowing me to see the bigger picture in things, you know? So basically, I was with him for 2.5 years, and he came home one day and called me and was like, hey, like, I'm going to go watch Jesus Revolution with my family. Keep in mind, in the 2.5 years that we were together, we never spoke about God. Never. The only conversation we had about him was, like, when you're getting to know somebody, I was like, are you religious? And he was like, well, I'm, like, Christian. I believe in God. And I was like, okay. He's like, what about you? And I was like, no. And he's like, you don't believe in God? I was like, no. And he was like, why? And I was like, I've had a lot of things happen to me, like, when I was a kid and, like, my upbringing and, like, everything that caused me to not believe in God. Like, if God was real, and this is, like, a question that everybody has, like, if God is real, why did God let that happen?
Yeah.
Why did that happen to me?
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up. Like, realistically, like, I had so much, like, trauma growing up, like, with my family problems and, like, just things that happened to me, like, as a kid, where it's like, if God was real, like, why did he let that happen? That shouldn't have happened to me. Like, I was innocent. And so with that, like, I kind of just told him that, and he was kind of like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, okay. So we never spoke about it after that. So this day he came home and was like, hey, like, I'm going to go watch Jesus Revolution with my family. I'll talk to you later. Okay. Comes back, completely different person.
Wow.
Completely different person. And just told me, hey, so I watched the movie, whatever, and was kind of just like beating around the bush. And then finally he was like, so there's a lot of things that are going to change. We're not going to be having sex anymore because, you know, we were very worldly. We're not going to be doing that anymore.
Dang.
I am devoting myself to God, and I'm going to go all in. Like, I'm tired of
Wow.
being lukewarm. Like, I'm not going to do this
Dang,
anymore.
from one movie.
From
Yeah.
one movie.
That's crazy.
No, yeah, completely different person. And
That's
I was
awesome.
like, what?
You were probably shocked. What is this movie?
I know. You're like, I need to go see this
No,
movie.
literally, I was like,
let me call my tarot card reader
Right?
lady.
and I did.
Ask her about this
And
movie.
I did.
Oh,
Oh, I sure
another
did.
$40. You should have spent $20 and watched the movie.
Right? Took someone to go watch the movie.
I know. Yeah, so he came back and was like, we're not doing that anymore. I'm devoting myself to God, and if you're not willing to do it with me, then I can't be with you.
Dang.
And I was like,
Shout out to him. That's
no,
hard.
yeah.
That's crazy.
No, yeah, but in the moment, that Jezebel in me.
You're pissed.
I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? We've never talked about God, and now you're giving me this ultimatum. And I was literally like so mad. Like, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to put my faith in. He had no idea, like, I was getting my cards read. I think I had told him once. I remember I told him once, yeah, because I was like, hey, like, are you going through this? And he told me, how do you know that? You should not know that.
Yeah.
And then I told him, like, I get my cards read. Don't ever do that again. And I was like, what? And because he believed in God, and he knew that wasn't right. So after that, I never told him ever again, like, that I was doing it, or like that's what I was doing behind closed doors. And my dad never knew either. The only one who knew was my mom and my aunt Melissa. Nobody else knew. So he basically told me, like, yeah, we're not doing any of that anymore, and if you're not going to be a Christian, I can't be with you.
Wow.
I was like, bro, what?
Dang.
I was so mad. And I was like, well, I was born, raised Catholic, and that didn't work out for me. So if I ever did go back to, like, religion, like, I would go back to Catholicism. He's like, that's not what I said. Like, if you're not going to be Christian, I can't be with you.
Dang.
So he pretty much gave me this ultimatum, and he was serious about it. So I was like, okay, well, I have to think about it, because I'm not just going to let you dictate, like, what I put my future in. And then so we hung up the phone, and I pretty much, like, cried out to whoever it was, because it really broke my heart. Like, I love this person, like, so much. Like, that was my first love. And the devil will get you with your weakness, and he was my weakness. Like, I would literally give anything for this person.
Was he your twin? What's that called? The twin something?
Twin
Was he a
flame?
twin flame?
We did not get along.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, twin flame, soulmate.
She told me a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Dang, Manny.
No, yeah.
I was like, twin something.
Nah, this my twin flame right here.
Okay.
Twin flame. No, yeah. But basically, I remember, like, that night, like, I really felt it, like, in my heart, where I was like, damn, like, that really hurt. Like, we might just actually be done, because I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to let him tell me what to do. So I remember after that phone call, like, I literally, like, I got down on my knees, and I was sobbing. Like, I don't know what it was about this time. I just knew he was so serious about it. And I think that's why, like, I was, like, scared, because he was so serious about it.
Yeah.
So I was like, dang. So I got down on my knees, and I just started sobbing, like, breaking down. I was like, I tried everything to make this relationship work. Like, why is it not working out for me? Like, I love this person so much. And I started crying so hard, to where it got put on my heart to, like, seek a higher power. Like, I didn't want to keep getting my cards read. So I was like, I don't know who you are, what you are, but if you're willing to change his life and his perspective that much, if he's willing to leave me over you, I want to know you too.
That's crazy.
I want to know you too. So whoever you are, whatever you are, because he's saying Jesus. I'm like, I don't know Jesus. So I was like, whoever you are, like, I need something. Please tell me, like, this man isn't for me. Please, like, I'm begging you. I'm literally begging you. Please tell me this man isn't for me, because if he isn't for me, like, I'll leave him. I'll lay my whole entire life down to you. If you just give me a sign that you're real. And in this moment, like, I was literally sobbing so hard. Like, my heart was completely shattered. And I just felt instant peace just, like, rain over me, just fall on me. And so much where it was like I could finally breathe, and I was like, I just took a deep breath, and I was like, okay, maybe I just needed to cry it out. Like, I'm good now. And I went to bed. In that moment, like, I didn't know that was God's presence. I didn't know that was God's peace. I didn't know that was God's love. But that's the same feeling I feel now when I pray to God. Whenever I'm going through something and I ask for, like, his peace, like, that's what I feel. So went to bed that night, and I can't explain to you, like, I till this day, like, I still don't know if it was, like, I can't remember, like, if it was the audible voice of God, like, in my dream. Because I remember, like, when I told, like, my ex about it, he was like, did you hear God? And I'm sitting there like, did I hear God? But I'm dreaming, so it must have been, you know?
Yeah.
So I just heard, like, it was completely black, and then it turned, like, completely white. And I'm just, like, sitting there and, like, this like super bright room, and all I hear is, what more do you need to understand that this man is not for you? As you sat here and you begged me and you cried to me to explain to you that this man wasn't for you, what more do you need as you're sitting here begging me to give you a sign? If this, like, common sense, kind of like, girl, if you're sitting here and you're crying and you're begging me, like, obviously this man isn't for you, obviously.
Yeah.
And again, like with the past, you know, we just didn't really get along. There was no other issues other than we bumped heads a lot. And just because I wasn't willing to submit and he was just like, you know, trying to, yeah. So basically, I woke up in the morning and I was like, God, is that you? I knew it was Jesus. Like, I knew it was Jesus. I don't know what it was in me, but something, like, it was Jesus. Like, there was no question about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, I really got to lay my life down now.
Yeah.
Because I really said that.
Yeah.
So I remember I woke up in the morning and me and him were still talking. And I had this on my heart for a whole week. And I didn't tell him. But God had already put it in my heart. This man isn't for you. He's not for you. And I was like, damn, like, I don't want to leave him. So I remember finally, like, we kept, like, just bumping heads a lot. And we sat down in the car one day and he was talking about his faith and he was talking about God. Like, you know, I went to church. Yeah. So basically after that whole incident, I ended up going to church, to this one church that his mom had actually took me to like a year before that. I was going through like a breakup with him again, and me and his mom were really close. And she took me to her church, and that was the only Christian church like I knew of. And I remember I told my grandma, I was like, I want to get back to like, I told her like, I want to get to know God. And my grandma was like ecstatic because she keeps her family in her prayers. So when I told her, she was like, breakthrough, like finally my answers are being answered. My prayers are being answered. And so she was so excited about it. But then I told her, I was like, but I think I want to pursue Christianity. And she was like, why? Well, the reason why was because of him. And I was like, yeah, I think I want to pursue Christianity. And she was kind of like, you know, she's Catholic and she's like very religious. So she was like, well, whatever you want. She's like, you know, I'm just happy that you're coming to God. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I think she said that thinking I wasn't going to be a Christian. So I remember I tried out Catholicism again. I went to the church, to her church, and I just didn't feel anything. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try Christian church now. So I went to the Christian church and I went by myself. And the first time I went, it's always the first time you go. Like that message is just for you. So I remember I went and they started talking about like your day-to-day life, like your struggles, like, you know, your struggles. And they pretty much read me. I can't remember what the verse it was, but it said, you have enough to worry about today.
Yeah.
So don't worry about tomorrow.
Dang, I just posted that. It's crazy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I think I saw it. Yeah. Well, that's the verse that I got. And it was like, I was so worried about like my future with this person. I was so worried when God had already told me like, this person isn't for you. And just like the whole message was literally just for me. They did an altar call and I was like, is that for me? It's like, no, that's not for me. And they were like, okay, raise your hand, whoever wants to give their life to Jesus. And I was like, well, I already did. And I felt something tugging on my heart, like, no. And it, now that I realize it, like, even speaking it now, like, the reason for that, because, like, why do I have to go up to the altar? Yeah. And it just, like, it shows, like, humility. Yeah. Like, it shows, like, I'm surrendering. Yeah. Like, I'm willing to go up there. So I remember, I was like, no, I don't want to, like, I'm embarrassed. I dealt with so much anxiety, like, I can't even remember when I had first got anxiety, but it was from a very young age, very depressed, super anxious. And that's one of the downfalls in my relationship too, because I was so anxious, I was constantly nagging this person. Why don't you love me? Do you still love me? Do you still care about me? Do you still this? Do you still that? Super depressed, constantly wanting that attention, constantly feeling like I needed somebody to love me. And basically,
was he going to the church real quick? Was he going to the church, that same church you were going to, or no?
He was, but we wouldn't go together. And I believe he ended up going to like this really small church too. because after that movie, he ended up watching, what was it? Come Out in Jesus' Name.
Yeah.
That was a really big changer too. Like he started ripping up all his clothes. Like,
Really?
yeah, he was like, this is demonic. I didn't even realize this, and I didn't even realize this. So he was just going crazy.
Did you watch it too, like back then?
No, I didn't get to. I actually just watched. I bought it like a couple days ago, and I watched it. It was so good.
Yeah.
So I remember where was I? Oh yeah, so I went up to the altar. I gave my life to Jesus, and that day, like I was saved, and I came home and I called him, and I pretty much like vented to him, and I was just crying and sobbing and like telling him like I gave my life to Jesus, like, you know, and in hopes that by me again becoming a Christian, our relationship would work out.
Yeah.
So something that I realized was when I first came to God, I wasn't doing it for God. I was doing, my intentions weren't in the right place. So that was the first time like I had came to God, but I never felt God after that. And I would ask myself, why don't I feel you the way he feels you? Like, why does this, like, why isn't it working out for me? Like, why this, and that? First of all, you're being disobedient. I told you this person wasn't for you. Second of all, what are your intentions behind it? Your heart's not in it. You're not doing it because you want to get to know me. You're doing it because you want to be with this person. And I remember, like, that was a revelation I got, like, months later. And I remember, like, I was trying to come to God, and I was really trying to, like, devote my life to him. But there was so much things that I couldn't overcome. Like, I didn't want to let go of my secular music. I didn't want to, you know, stop posting, like, these promiscuous, like, things on social media. Like, I couldn't stop because I didn't understand. So basically, in, like, a short, like, I guess you can say, like, I was just opening my Bible and he was already on, like, page 50.
Wow.
So that's when, like, the conversation of God became very controversial because he was talking about deliverance. And I was like, what? And then he was talking about speaking in tongues and how he wanted to speak in tongues. And I'm like, what?
He's crazy, but you're going to the card lady.
Yeah.
But he's the crazy one.
You told me the exact same thing on my podcast.
But it's crazy, right?
No, it is.
Like in church, it's weird, but
No,
you're
yeah.
going.
So funny.
No, yeah, it really is. And it's crazy because even when I was saved, I fell into getting my cards read twice. And I remember the card lady, she would tell me, he's not going to last. It's a phase. He's not going to last. And I was like, oh, okay. Because again, like, I don't know if I was delivered from it, but like this, I could have swore it was Jezebel. Like, Jezebel in me was telling me, like, again, like, the lustfulness, like, you know, because he already set his boundary. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was still not there, even though I was saved, you know? So very much, this was in March. And all the way up until, I want to say, like, May. God had already told me this person wasn't for me. This person wasn't for me. And yet the same issues were occurring, And finally, we ended up breaking it off. And during this time of our breakup is when I finally, like, was able to feel actual pain. And I feel like I had nothing else to cling on to. Nothing else but God. I had no other option. I literally had no other option. And it's not like I could even do it to be with this person because I wasn't with this person anymore. So in a way, like, I was kind of just forced to, not forced, but yeah, in a way, like, forced to, like, rely on God. And I remember I was in my car and I was driving and I was just constantly feeling convicted, whether it was getting my car or because I was sitting in church, not consistently, but I would go here and there to church, and obviously, like, I knew these things weren't right. I started to feel convicted about doing a lot of things. I started to feel convicted about listening to my secular music. I started to feel convicted about I would smoke weed a lot because of my anxiety. So I started feeling convicted about my weed, and I started feeling convicted about you know, talking to guys, and, you know, just things that I would normally do in the world. And I was like, dang, like, why do I feel convicted about these things? And it's when I realized, like, I have Holy Spirit. And I was like, but I'm still going through these things. Like, why do I still feel this way then? But realistically, like, looking back, like, I wasn't doing the things that I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't reading the Bible. I definitely was not reading the Bible. I had the Bible app, but I wouldn't open it. I didn't have a physical Bible yet. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't worshiping. I knew like maybe 3 worship songs, and I wasn't praying. I don't know why, but I felt so lazy when it came to prayer. So lazy. And I didn't know the importance of prayer. I always thought like, okay, you're praying it kind of like, I thought like praying was kind of just like, I don't know how to explain it. Like it didn't work. Like you were kind of just venting. That's what I thought prayer was.
That's good.
And I was like, well, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, you know, like, so I never prayed, never worshiped. I wasn't putting on the armor of God. So how can you expect to feel God when you're not doing the things that God told you to do in order to protect yourself from these things?
Yeah.
So I remember I was driving in the car and I was on my way home from work and I was like, I don't want to feel this conviction anymore. Like, leave me alone. Like, I want nothing to do with you right now. Like, you're not helping me. I'm going through my breakup alone. I'm in so much pain. Like, I want to smoke my weed. I want to go out to party. I want to go do these things. Like, I'm going to do it my way because your way obviously isn't working for me. And in that moment, this instant conviction and just fear reigned over me because I literally said, I'll come back to you later. I'll come back to you when I'm older. I'll come back to you when I'm over this. Like, I'm going to do it my way right now. Instant fear, instant just petrified. Who told you you had later? Who told you were going to make it home today? Who told you? If you died today, where would you go? I literally was on the freeway and I was like, what am that's when I want to say obtained the fear of the Lord. That's when I understood the fear of the Lord. That was my second encounter with God. I did not know the fear of the Lord until then. I didn't realize how long eternity was. I didn't realize how real hell was until then.
That's crazy.
And that's a misconception that everybody has too. Like, oh, like I'll go back I'll when I'm older. Yeah. When I'm older. Like, you know, like, yeah, like I want to live my life right now and I'll do it when I'm older. But how many people die in their sin? How many people, like, even like say like the Travis Scott concert, like people died in that crowd, like kids, like
it's crazy.
And it's like you never know when you're gonna die. People die every single day, whether it's on the freeway, whether it's drug overdose. Like you it's just, it mind like boggles me, like how real like death is, and we just don't understand. We don't know when it's gonna happen, and you have to always be prepared. So that's when I realized, like, oh, like I can't be dabbling in my sin. Like I got like, okay, I'm gonna get my life together now. So that's when I consistently started going to church. I bought a Bible, and I started being like more in the Word. Well, me and this person, like, we ended up talking very briefly, and he kind of just mentioned to me, like, do you still go to that spiritually dead church?
Oh, dang.
And I was like, what? And when he told me this, I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like, do you still go to like that spiritually dead church? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm so thankful that he did say that, because honestly, I was comfortable in my church. But realizing it, they don't do deliverance. They talk very briefly about about tongues, but I've never heard them speak in tongues. And they don't touch on deliverance.
Was it a different church from the one that his mom took you to?
No, it was
I was say you should have been like, your mom goes there.
I know, right? She didn't go
Your
there.
mama goes
If
there.
you want to go there.
Your mama does.
Wow.
I'm crazy.
Manny.
I'm crazy.
That's so funny. But she doesn't go there anymore. But yeah, they had left the church once I started going there. And I was like, what do you mean spiritually dead? So it really got me thinking. And I was like, is it spiritually dead? And then I started to realize, like, wow, they don't talk about deliverance. Wow, they don't talk about like these things. And at the time I was still feeling like super oppressed. Like I still had anxiety. I was still like going through it, like with depression and like all these other like emotions. Like I didn't understand why. And I was like, dang. So then that's when I started working at her job. And that's when I met her. And when I met her, she told me about Calvin. And she's like, oh, I have a cousin. He goes to this church in Baldwin Park if like you want to go one day. I was like, yeah, I'm down to go. But it's just because going to that church and being like a first time Christian, like I don't know of any other churches. And once you get comfortable, like you don't want to go anywhere else, you know? I didn't have like community in that church either. I was just going Wednesdays and Fridays. and Sundays, but I didn't like have a relationship with God yet. But I craved more. Like, I know, like, I craved more. So when I started coming here, the first day I got here, I got delivered.
Wow, that's amazing.
I got delivered. It was Roman. He delivered me.
Of
Boss
course.
man?
Of course it was Roman.
No, literally. First time I came, we were literally in the front, we were worshiping, and I wasn't worshiping, like, I don't know if, like, you guys have seen me, like get comfortable, and then from going, like this, like, spare change, to, like, praising God.
Yeah.
So my...
That's a good one.
Yeah, like, spare change. I couldn't even go like this. I literally couldn't even go like this. And I remember that day, like, I was like, the worship had just really, really, really touched me. And I've never felt worship like that before. I've never felt the presence of God so strong.
Wow.
And I think it's because of all the people here. I've never seen so many on fire, like, people for God. Never. And that's why I love Harvest Time so much, because it was my first time, and yet everybody made me feel like I've been here for years. And not just that, but you see, and like I said, like in the video, like, you can tell by the way someone worships what they've gone through. You can tell who's been through hell and back by the way that they worship. Because the way these people were worshiping, I was like, wow, like, you could feel the presence of God so strong. And I remember I just started sobbing, like, just sobbing. And as soon as I started sobbing, Roman came up to me and he just started, I rebuke any spirit of anxiety, any spirit of depression. I literally just started sobbing, like, even harder. And it genuinely felt like a weight was lifted off of me. And after that worship, after that night, not an ounce of anxiety. Not an ounce of anxiety, not an ounce of depression, not an ounce of anything.
That's awesome.
And I felt so free. So free. And I remember I was like, this is the best I've ever felt. Like, even going through, like, my breakup, like, it didn't even faze me anymore. I was like, oh, like, I'm free. And, you know, fast forward to, like, maybe a couple months later, something happened, like, with a friend, and my ex relationship got brought up again. And in this with this whole situation that happened, it brought me back to that pain, to that feeling. And even though, like, I was freed from, like, depression and anxiety, I still felt like there was something holding me back. Like, I kept thinking about this person, like, oh, I just need to get over it. Like, I just need to, like, really just like, let time pass. But I was really, like, praying to God, and I was actually doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. I was worshiping, I was praying, I was reading the Bible, like, I was spending time with God. And basically, I still felt like this oppression of, like, why can't I let this person go? Like, why? There's something more. And God had already been, like, revealing it to me, like, an ungodly soul tie. And I was like, but I already rebuked it. Like, I rebuke any spirits of, like, ungodly soul ties. Like, give me back anything that was mine, and I give you back everything that is yours. Like, I'm just done. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. Threw away all the pictures, deleted all the pictures, did everything I was supposed to do. And I was still dealing with it. And I was like, why am I still dealing with it? Well, I was like, well, maybe I just need to get over it. Well, taking back to that worship night. So that day, basically Antoinette had invited me to a worship night. So on this worship night, I was like, I wasn't even going to go. I was like, no, it's really far. And then I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to go. So I'm getting ready, got in the car, and I'm, like, worshiping in my car. And all of a sudden, like, I just feel, like, the presence of God so strong. Like, I got holy goosebumps, like, in my car and everything. I'm just praising God. Like, God, I don't know, like, why I feel like this. I'm still going through the pain. I'm still going through the breakup, but I'm going to praise you. I'm going to praise you regardless of how I feel, because I don't see the blessings you have for me, but I know they're coming. Because if I'm going through this type of pain as much as I am right now, I know the blessings are going to be so much better. So much better. So I was like, okay, praising God. And all of a sudden, I start rebuking anything inside of me. Like, God, I rebuke this ungodly soul tie. I rebuke this feeling, this feeling of hurt, this feeling of just rebuking everything inside of me. And then I go back to worshiping, and then I start speaking in tongues. I can't stop speaking in tongues. And all of a sudden, I start gagging. I'm driving to Antoinette's house and I'm gagging.
This by yourself? You're by yourself?
Yes, on my way to Antoinette's house to this like worship night. And I'm like gagging and gagging and gagging. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to throw up? Am I going to throw up? And I was like, no. So I'm like driving and I go back to worshiping. I literally have a video.
Really?
I have a video because I was recording myself like worshiping and I'm over here worshiping. And then all of a sudden I start gagging in the video and I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. I'll show you guys after.
That's why I'm laughing. I'm just thinking about the video.
Yeah.
Oh, did you hear it? Yeah, I did show you.
You showed us.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And then
Come out.
No, literally. And I was so confused. Like my face in the video like was so
Yeah.
confused. I was like, what is going on? Like, why am I gagging? And then I'm driving. Like, do I need to pull over? So I was like, no, I'm just I need to chill. Keep worshiping. And no, I actually baby barfed. And I was like,
Really?
okay, I need to pull over. And when I pulled over, I started throwing up.
Wow.
And I was like, I instantly called Anton. I was like, I think I just self-delivered myself. I was like telling her, she's like, oh, it's going to be a good night today. It's about to be a good night. So
That's crazy.
long story short, we ended up going to that worship night. We were in the car. We were just talking, worshiping. And then we got to that mansion. And then Antoinette said dress casual. And I'm in my leggings and a big old hoodie.
It's this gorgeous mansion in the
know.
hills. We're like,
No, literally. And then we walk in. And everybody's dressed like super like rich.
yeah.
Like really nice. And I'm over here like not supposed to be here.
There's like a bunch of people that go to the Increase Summit or the Increase Conference there, and we were like, what the heck is going on? It's just so random.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
crazy.
we're like especially me, I was like, bro, I don't look like I need to be here right now.
Yeah.
So Antoinette literally as we walk in and we like we're standing by like this wall, like leaning on a wall and listening to them. And she leans over to me because I'm like still looking around like, dang, like I shouldn't be here right now. And I was so like heartbroken at this time, keep in mind. And she leans over to me and she goes, sometimes where you feel so out of place and like you're not supposed to be is exactly where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. So then I was paying attention to what they were talking about, and basically came this part where they said that they were going to have the worshipers sing over people. So it's kind of like prophetic singing, right?
Yeah.
So they'll pick somebody and then they'll just speak whatever God is, sing whatever God is speaking to them. So they started doing that, and then came this worshiper where she started singing over this woman. And she started singing over her. And when she started singing over her, she said something along the lines of, God sees you when you cry. He sees you in your pain, and he's with you. He wraps his arms around you. He's with you the whole entire time. When you cry, he cries with you.
Wow.
And it was talking about heartbreak. That hit me so hard. So hard, because I'm over here like, God, like you don't hear my prayers. You don't like, what's going on? Like I'm praying to you every day. I'm doing everything right. Like why can't I hear you? Why can't I feel you? Like, did you leave me? What's going on? And with her singing that, even though she wasn't singing over me, I knew it was for me. I knew it was for me. And I just started sobbing. And I guess one of the other worshipers had seen that I was sobbing after the whole worship. She stopped like singing over her. There was like room for fellowship. So I sat down and I was like talking to Cristina, to Antoinette, Chris, and like everybody who was there. And basically the worshiper, she came up to me. She's like, you were highlighted to me the second you walked in.
Wow.
And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. She goes, I have a vision that God gave me for you. Can I share it with you? And I told her, yeah, of course. And she goes, I just have this vision of God stitching up the sides of your heart.
Dang.
She goes, and there's butterflies flying around.
Wow.
She said the butterfly part, and I started sobbing. I just broke down because God had given me visions about butterflies, dreams about butterflies. And when I would go in my secret place, I would go to a park and I would be like, God, give me a word, and flip my page to like a random page in the Bible, and there'd be butterflies flying around. And God had already revealed to me that this butterfly meant transformation.
Wow.
Like this butterflies are
good.
so like significant like in my life now because it's from God. Like I know it's from God. And he gave me like that revelation of knowing that this butterfly means transformation, because when it goes from a caterpillar to the cocoon and then a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
So this is your old life as a caterpillar. You're sad, you're ugly, you're all these other things before I
Dusty.
cried. Literally.
Dusty.
Literally.
Just got
A
caterpillars
worm.
dusty.
A worm. So, and then you get put into this pruning season. And I remember like during my pruning season, like it's so crazy because I had that's a whole nother story. But basically, he puts you in this cocoon where he starts taking all the bad out. This is like your sanctification process, right? Where he starts plucking all the worldly people out.
That's good.
Your like secular music, basically taking all the bad out. But you need to be isolated. And I remember during this time, like I had lost all my friends, like I didn't have anybody, and I just felt so lonely during this season. But when you come out of that cocoon, you're this completely different person.
Yeah.
And that's your new life in Christ.
That's good.
So when she said that butterflies were flying around, I just started sobbing because that was just confirmation for me. That was just confirmation. And especially like the confirmation, like him stitching up my heart and everything. She told me this and I started sobbing and she was like, what was it that made you cry? And I was like, well, all of it, but mostly the butterflies. And she's like, that's crazy because I wasn't even going to say the butterflies. She's like, I thought it was silly. Like I wasn't even going to say it.
Wow.
And then I was like, yeah, like God had already given me revelation about that specifically. So then she pretty much told me, like, well, what are you going through? Gave her a little bit of my testimony rundown. And then she's like, I feel an ungodly soul tie.
Wow.
And I was like, She's like, I can pray over you or you can have your friends pray over you. And I was like, Pastor said to not let random people pray over you. So I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna, I was like, I'm gonna have my friends pray over me. She's like, okay. So at this point, everybody had already left. It was just us by the fire pit.
Yeah, we didn't realize we were the last ones there.
It's just so crazy.
You should ask her, how much do you charge?
Wow. Yeah, so.
She's what you mean? How much do you charge? Because she would charge the tarot card?
Yeah.
I'm like, she's not with the $40 in her hand. Yeah, just kidding.
So then, it was just us. So I went up to Antoinette and I was like, Antoinette, like, I think I need prayer. And she was like, okay, for what? And I was like, an ungodly soul tie. And then she was like, okay. So she called over Cristina and she called over the girls and they were all sitting, and then Chris, Kevin, and his name? Artie, yes.
Oh, my
Artie.
cousin was there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They were sitting in front of us. So all the girls laid hands on me. And the guys were just praying over me from a distance, like from across the fire pit. So they were praying over me from there. And everybody was just praying over me, and Antoinette just starts praying over me. And she starts rebuking an ungodly soul tie. And, I just started crying. I was sobbing. This man came out of nowhere. Flew in from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Where did he come from?
They had just gotten in from Hawaii.
From Hawaii.
Yeah.
Didn't know him. He wasn't even in the conversation. Didn't know what I needed prayer for, at least from what I know of, right? I don't think you guys told him.
Yeah.
And he just like walked over, laid his hand like on my head. I think, yeah. I felt his hand because there's so many hands on me. I didn't even know. He put his hand on my head and just started rebuking ungodly soul ties, spirit of lust and spirit of orphan.
Wow.
And rejection.
Dang.
I literally instantly, I've never had a manifestation like that.
Really?
But I felt the same way. Have you ever gotten a text? This is the best way to describe it. Have you ever gotten a text that says, we need to talk?
Oh, yeah.
You ever get that text? We need to talk. Yeah. And your instant body like just goes into shock. Instant anxiety, like that shock. And I haven't felt that type of anxiety in forever. My whole body just like went into shock. And I felt so much pressure. Like I tensed up so hard. And I just started gagging. Like not screaming, but like this cry that came out was just like a cry of relief. Like, and I just started gagging and gagging and gagging. Started throwing up. And he just started rebuking all this stuff like out of me. And at the same time where I felt like this was coming out, because I really felt something coming out of me. This thing that was coming out of me, I felt like something was coming into me. And finally, when he was done, I remember like so much peace just coming over me. So much peace, so much love. And just being there with all these people who like genuinely care about me. Like I've never had that. Because growing up, like I felt so rejected, like from like my mom. So it played like a really big role in like my upbringing too. Because growing up feeling rejected, now I know that's why I constantly seeked that validation in other people. Why I constantly seek that validation in men, in friends, in any type of relationships. Like I just wanted somebody to love me. And he delivered me from that spirit of rejection that spirit of orphan, because I always wondered, like, why didn't my mom love me, you know? And I remember one time her even telling me, like, if me, your own mother, doesn't love you, what makes you think anybody else will?
Really?
Yeah. So there was a lot of forgiveness that I had to do there, but thankfully I did forgive.
That's good.
And that's why I was finally able to get delivered from it, because before that I hadn't forgiven her. But at this time I did already, because I was already like on my walk with Christ. So when I got delivered from that, I remember it was so bad. Like, look, I'm still dealing with this popped eye blood vessel. Like,
From that night?
yeah.
Really?
No, the next day I literally was hanging out with my friend. She's like, have you always had that? And I was like, what? And she took a picture. My whole eye was just like,
Dang.
like all bloody. And I was
From like the pressure? or something?
yeah. Probably from the pressure, the throwing up.
It's
Like,
crazy. It
yeah.
happened to me one time too. I got delivered here and I had like a whole rash like all over my face.
Wow.
From like popping blood vessels, I guess. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
like from screaming or like so much pressure.
Just like trying to, I don't know, push everything out, get everything out.
Yeah.
It's like, get out of me.
Yeah, literally. So it was crazy. And I remember after that, God told me, like, I felt him tell me, like, you're free. You're free. But just because you're free doesn't mean you still have healing to do. You're still going to feel it, but you don't have anything holding you down now.
That's good.
And I was like, okay. So, of course, like, I still went through it for like a week and a half, like, still feeling that pain. But I would just remind myself, I'm free. Like, there's nothing holding me. I'm just waiting for time to pass by. And I remember, like, during that time where, like, I felt like God wasn't hearing my prayers, like, he wasn't coming through for me. This was before my deliverance. I had to leave work one day because I was sobbing at work, and I was like, God, I don't feel your presence. I don't feel your love. Like, why aren't you here? Like, I don't hear you the way I did. I don't feel you the way I did. Like, what's going on? Why have you left me? I literally left work, went to my secret place, and went to the park, opened my page to a random page in the Bible, and I opened up to Daniel 10:12, where it said, it was basically the archangel Michael came down to Daniel, and he was talking to Daniel. He came down to speak to Daniel because Daniel was doing, I think, a fast.
Yeah, the fasting.
And he was asking God the same questions. Why have you left me? Like, why aren't you here? Like, do you hear me? Do you not hear me? Like, what's going on? Archangel comes down and says, you don't know how precious you are to God.
It's crazy.
You don't know how precious you are. So precious that I literally had to come down and talk to you.
Wow.
He sent me to talk to you.
Yeah.
And he just wants me to tell you that the heavens have heard your prayers the first day you started praying. And I was like, what? I read this and I remember, like, just instant love just fell over me. I just started sobbing again. And I was like, wow, God, you're so good. Like, thank you so much. Like, because I'm over here thinking, like, you don't hear me, but you do hear me.
Yeah.
But what we don't see is what's going on in the spiritual realm. When you're praying, you're worshiping, there's literally a spiritual warfare going on. It's kind of like, what dog do you feed more, right? You're feeding the white dog more, like, the white dog's going to win. Yeah. That's you're worshiping, you're praying, you're reading your Bible. Yeah. But if you're not feeding this dog and you're kind of just giving into worldly things, obviously this one's going to win, right? The black dog. Yeah. And then also, like, this perfect representation. Antoinette had literally sent me a video of, like, this guy talking about, like, Chick-fil-A. It's so crazy, but you are waiting in line. You put in your order at the window, at this, like, little window, right? The little speaker. You don't know how long it's going to take you to get to the window to actually pick up your food. You don't know if it's going to be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It could even be an hour. But what you also don't see is what's going on inside the kitchen.
That's good.
You don't see the food being made. You don't see everything that's going on in there just to get your order out. So it's like, yeah, along that time that you're waiting in line to get to this window, you're going to come across, like, a lot of things, like maybe you're going to get hangry, you know, you're going to get mad, frustrated, you know, all these other things. But at the end, when you get to that window, you're going to have that order waiting for you. And it's the same thing when you put in a prayer. You know, God's timing is never wrong.
That's good.
So it's like just being patient. And then during this time of waiting, he, like, gave me the revelation of, what was it? God doesn't tempt you. Impatience does. And I remember, like, back then, like, before I was, like, walking in obedience with God, I was constantly, like, giving into worldly things because I was so impatient. Like, God, you're not coming through for me. Like, it's been, like, a month already, like, you know? And just because of my impatience, I backtracked so much. And who knows, I could have delayed my blessing a month, 2 months, maybe even a few months because I went back into my sin. So that's a revelation that he gave me, like, you know. And then again, like, I heard it here. I forgot his name, but he said a delayed prayer is not a denied prayer. And I remember I hold on to that for so long. I remember even before like my family was saved, like a delayed prayer is not a denied prayer.
That's good.
You know, it's always like in God's timing, because God's timing is like never wrong.
Yeah.
That's good.
But, yeah.
That's crazy, man. I feel like we need like a part 2, because you went like you went fast, but I know there's so much other details in there. What have like people, friends, have anyone like noticed any change in you? Like, have they messaged you, good or bad? Like, what's the feedback they've gotten from like friends or people that follow you and stuff?
So good. It's been so good, and I've been blessed to not have like any hateful comments. It's crazy though, because it'd be the family. The family is the one that be persecuting you. It's crazy because I just got that revelation right now of like that scripture that says like, I came to turn mother against daughter, son against father, things like that. But yeah, I've gotten a lot of like good feedback, and I'm so happy, because when I first came to Christ, I told him I was going to lay everything down for him, including my social media. I was a big like gym rat. Like the gym was literally my idol. Like I would post fitness content all the time. Like I even got like a supplement sponsor and a clothing sponsor. Like I was really, really into it. And I was posting these like promiscuous photos and, you know, like things like that of the gym. And I remember I was like, God, like, I'm going to give it all to you. I'm going to give it all to you. I was like, even my social media, I'll delete my social media. I'll just start a new one. And I remember like he told me, no. Because with the platform that you gained off of that, these people were following you for the wrong intentions. The boys were lusting over you. The women wanted to be you, like, you know, all these other things. That's exactly the people I want to target.
Wow.
That's exactly the people I want to target. So you're going to keep it, but you're going to use it to glorify me.
That's good.
And I was like, okay. So when I started doing that, I started posting about like my journey with God, you know. I started posting about me going to church, me making my fellowships, like, you know, Bible scriptures and things like that. And even posting like questionnaires, like if you guys have any questions, like let me know, like I can get you connected with somebody, like I have a good church, like, you know, things like that. And so many girls started texting me.
Wow.
So many girls. How did you get into it? How can I get into it? Like, did he really help you with this? Or like, you know, like I strayed away from church and I'm just scared to go back. And like, I have a friend that was like Jehovah's Witness and she was so church hurt. And I brought her to church with me and she's like trying to get into it too. But something that I try to realize is you can't save somebody that doesn't want to be saved. So this is like my motto now. Like I'll invite people to church all the time. I don't know if you guys have seen, but I be inviting people all the time, all the time.
That's awesome.
So, my motto is, I'm only going to ask you once. And I was like, I know my God will encounter you. I was like, if you want to feel the love of God, if you want a relationship with him, come to my church. I'm inviting you. And they'll be like, yeah, I'll go. We'll make plans to come. I won't hit him up the day of, because I just feel like if you really want to, you're gonna come. But if I have to constantly bug you to come, you don't want to be here. Might as well not even come. Like, you know, because you're not really here to be here. You don't want to be here. Your mental's like not here. So I'll invite them. I'll give them the address. I'll give them all the information. Thankfully, every single person that said like they were gonna come through, they did come through.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So thanks to God.
That's awesome.
But basically, a lot of people have came to me like asking me like, you know, and I try to direct them to the best, like at the best way that I could and how I learned about God. But I was so early on into my walk too, where I didn't know too much. So that's when I started knowing like I need to educate myself more. Like I need to read the Bible more. I need to get discipled. I need to have a mentor. Like I can't be like giving people just like advice when I don't know too much like myself. So it definitely has. It's so amazing. It's so amazing to see like what God said he was going to do. He did.
That's
How's
crazy.
your relationship with your parents now that you've gotten saved?
I try to talk to my mom, but we bump heads a lot because of like the different beliefs. And I remember like the last time I spoke to her, she told me I pretty much like God was putting it in my heart to literally just call her and tell her, God loves you. God loves you. And then I was like, God, I don't want to call her. And he's like, tell her I love her because I love her.
Yeah.
She needs to know. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Like, who was it? Your mom who was talking about, like, we know who we can and can't talk to about God. Or was it Pastor? I'm not sure
That was
who
my
it was.
mom last week, yeah.
We know who we can and can't talk to about God. And my mom's one of those people. I'm like, I don't want to. And then, so I was like, oh, okay, fine. Called her up, told her, hey, Mom. Like, we just started talking. And I told her, I was like, God just wants me to tell you that he loves you. Jesus loves you. And she was like, oh, thank you, I know. And then I was like, but do you really? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm Catholic. I believe in God. And I was like, so do demons and they tremble.
That's funny.
And then she was like, yeah, I believe in him, blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, I feel like it's always an excuse for everybody. I feel like I don't need to go to church. I don't need to go to church. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then kind of just like ended the conversation about that there. And it was talking about something else. I was like, oh, my back hurts. And she was, oh, come over. Like, we got to get your chakras balanced. And I was like, girl, I don't believe in that.
Dang.
And then she was like, I started talking about God again, right? And then she was like, well, why don't you believe in getting your chakras balanced? And I was like, well, because I believe in God and I believe God can heal anything, you know, and all these other things. And then she was like, okay. I started preaching to her, telling her, like, Mom, you need to come to God. Like, God is waiting for you. It doesn't matter, like, what you've done, like, giving her a little bit of rundown of the gospel. And she goes, I'm Catholic. Like, I know God and this and that. She's like, I'm really happy for you and, like, what you've gone through and everything. And I'm glad that you found God, but I'm going to believe what I believe and you believe what you believe. Pretty much set that boundary. And I kind of have to respect it too. So I was like, okay, I understand, because it's my mom. You got to honor your parents. So I was like, okay, yeah, I respect it. And she goes, until God comes to me looking for me, I'm not going to look for him. I was like, Mom, what do you think he's doing right now?
Dang.
What do you think he's doing right now?
Yeah.
And after that, she just started manifesting. That Jezebel started manifesting. So I was like, okay. So after that, I hadn't talked to her. It was like a month and a half ago. And she actually texted me today. And she was like, hey, like, what are you doing for your birthday? And I was like, oh, you know, kind of just a little bit of a rundown. And then she was like, okay. She's like, well, I got you a gift. She's like, so come pick it up whenever you want. And I was like, okay. I've been keeping her in my prayers.
That's good.
As far as like my dad, when I
This
first
one's crazy.
Yeah, this is crazy. So he basically, when I first came to Christ in March, I was telling him a little bit about it. And he was like, that's good. That's good. I'm really happy for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, will you come to church with me? And he was like, no. He's like, keep your beliefs. I have mine. You know how I feel about it. I'm happy for you. But just don't be telling me come to church and all this other stuff. Like, keep it over there and I'll keep my beliefs over here. I respect yours, respect mine. And he set that boundary like very early on. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So again, like, I started in March, didn't start walking in obedience till maybe like June, July. And he didn't really see much change up until then. But like little by little, like, I started talking about it more and I started spending more time in church. I went from being in church just Wednesdays and Sundays to Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. To Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. So he started seeing me leave the gym, which this was my idol, and constantly in the gym for like 3 hours, to now being in church for more than, half my week. So he started seeing this, and little by little, he started asking more questions. Like, he started being more curious to it. And he started asking more questions, like, and then little, like, here and there, he'd be like, pray for me, like things like that. And then this past month, he went on a missionary trip without even knowing it was a missionary trip.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like,
wow.
he went out, like, with this group. He just told me very briefly, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to Ensenada. My dad's a great person. He's a really, really good person, has a really good heart. But just, like, he didn't know, like, what it was for. So basically, he goes on this trip, and it was to help out kids in Ensenada, build houses for, like, the people who didn't have houses, and pretty much, like, on this missionary trip. And he was pretty much just told me that, came back, and he came back like a completely different person too. Came back and was like, yeah, I didn't even know this was like a missionary trip. Like, they started talking about God, and I was like,
yeah,
what am I doing here? Yeah. So he said that he started being more receptive to it, and he saw, like, God working in that area. He saw, like, the special needs kids, because it's so sad. It's so sad how, like, how people live in like different countries, different states too. And basically he was just telling me like that really touched his heart. And he started talking a lot about God for somebody who I've never heard talk about God. So I was like, okay. And in this moment, like I remember I had just got delivered too. So when we were talking about God, he had told me, he's like, Natalie, like you have to realize all of this is mental too. If you allow yourself to be in a state of mind where you're constantly sad, you're going to stay there. He goes, like you said, God delivered you. So get up. And in that moment, I literally felt God speak to me saying, I did my part. It's time for you to do yours. Get up.
Wow.
You need to get up. There's nothing holding you back anymore. And in that moment is when I realized, like, you're so right. Like, I have nothing else to worry about. He's like, you really don't. He's like, I went to this, like, trip, and we're so blessed. You have no idea how we're blessed. And he started talking about, like, generational curses without even knowing he was talking about generational curses. He goes, because these kids are, like, in poverty, they grow up in poverty. They grow up in poverty, and now their kids have to grow up in poverty because they never got to go to school. They never got to do these things, you know? So he started telling me, like, how he saw, like, these kids being so happy, and it was because of the love of God. Like, even though, like, you may not have anything, you have the love of God, and that's all you need. And people don't realize, like, that's all you need. It fulfills you. It really does. Like, you could be left with anything. Like, looking now, like, if I'm left with absolutely nothing, if I have God, I got everything.
Yeah.
I have everything.
It's good.
Yeah. So I remember that that's like the first time I heard him talk about it, and that was the week before he came to church. So I guess like that was like marinating in his like brain and his heart and everything, thanks to God, because bro, we were praying on our family, me and my aunt. And I remember before he came to church, my aunt, she showed me this note that she wrote to God. It was a letter, and it was praying over my dad. And she's like, Lord, I want to pray over my brother. Like, I pray that you bring him, allow him to know your love, allow him to know your goodness, and just everything, you know, just praying over him. And she showed me it. And this is before he went on his missionary trip too. He came back. This was already written. Sunday comes around, and I'm getting ready for church, and he's like, hey, what time are you going to church? And I was like, just thinking he was just asking. And I told him, oh yeah, I'm going to be going at 11. And he was like, okay, what time do you leave? I was like, 10:30. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, well, let me know when you leave because we're going to go. I was like, who's we? Who is we?
Yeah.
And then he was like, yeah, me, Susie, and the girls are going to go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was so excited, so like ecstatic. Like I texted my discipleship group and I was like, guys, my family's going to church with me today. I was so excited. And I called Antoinette. I was like, Antoinette, my dad's coming to church today. And she was like, no way. I was like, yeah. So we were all really excited, got here, introduced him to everybody. And during the sermon, your mom, like, her message was not just for my family, but for me.
Wow.
Because she was talking about if you're a first Christian in your family, like, you know how hard it is. And it was so hard because I would be sitting at, like, a dinner table and I would be getting prosecuted by, like, my own family and, like, belittling me, asking me, like, what do you mean you hear the voice of God? What do you mean? Like, you know, like, just really, like, belittling me, and God giving me, like, this discernment to understand what this person is going through. This person deals with rejection. This person deals with this. This person deals with that. Walk in love. Walk in love regardless of whatever it is, whatever they're telling you, like, you walk in love. And that was something that, like, who was talking about? I don't know if it was Chris or if it was your dad who was talking about how we are the representation of Christ.
Yeah.
So that's something that's, like, I'm really heavy on that now too. Because it's so true. People will look at you and be like, why isn't she mad? Why isn't she, like, reacting the way she would have? Because before, like, my family knows me. Before, I would go off. Like, I was such a hothead. Like, I had such a bad attitude too. And now just allowing, like, this person to pretty much just eat me up and trying to describe, like, the love of God the best I could in that moment, and which is so hard to do when this person is just, like, coming at you.
Yeah.
So my dad had seen that too, because he was at the table when this was happening, and he was kind of just looking like, what? Like, he was just so, like, confused. So basically, he knew that whole situation with me. So when your mom was talking, I was literally, like, crying. I was crying because it really touched me, because I was like, wow, like I was the first Christian in my family. Like, it was so hard to talk about my faith with my family, like, because whether it was like my immediate family that would belittle me or make fun of me, it would be like just my family in general. So I never really went home talking about God. I could never really talk about it in my household. And I don't know which part it was that got to my dad, but when it came to the end and your dad, because for the whole time I've been here, your dad doesn't do altar calls, well, that I know of. And I think it's because he feels and knows like everybody is saved, you know, he knows his church, right? So I don't think like I've ever had like, or been in a service where he was like, if you want to accept Jesus into your heart, like raise your hand. And that was the first time I had heard it. And my dad just so happened to be in church, and it was just the right message for him, not just for him, but for my stepmom too, because she was sitting right next to me, and she was like, when is this going to be over? And right then and there, that's when like they started preaching, and then I was like, it'll be over in a bit. So then your dad asks like, who wants to give their life to Jesus? I was given the side eye like so hard, like trying to see if my dad would like raise his hand. Well, he raised his hand, and once he raised his hand, my stepmom raised her hand.
That's awesome.
And then my sister.
That's amazing.
And that just goes to show like the head of the household, like once he's in, like everybody's in.
Yeah.
And so when he did that, I just started sobbing. Everybody looked at me. Carla was sitting right next to me. She was like, and then everybody in the back, Chris was telling me, everybody was like crying because everybody had already knew.
Yeah.
So I was just in tears. I couldn't believe it, because during that worship session before that, it said simple obedience changes history. And because I decided to, it's crazy because when I got delivered, the guy, he prophesied Esther over me. That was the first time I heard Esther. And then Carla said Esther.
Wow.
And then who was it? Was it your mom? No, it was your dad who said Esther as well. And I just kept hearing Esther. And because of like her obedience, and because she decided to stand up for, you know, her people, everybody got saved. And it hit me so hard. Like everything that I was praying for, like thinking God wasn't listening to my prayers, wasn't like I was never going to have a breakthrough. That's something else like he had gave me, like that revelation of like, you have faith for other people, but you don't have faith for yourself. But it's when I started having faith for myself when my blessings started to come to me.
That's so good. And you're 6 months in right now into your faith, basically?
Yeah.
Crazy.
This is crazy. And even like the way you talk, like I know you're kind of raised in church and stuff and Catholic stuff, but even just the way you talk, even like the scripture, I'm like, dang, it seems like you've been saved for like at least a couple of years, at least, you know? Like God is really moving on you, and it's so good to see. I feel like we need a part 2 just to go in so much more detail, but it's so good to see where you're at. And I'm like, this is only the start.
Yeah.
Like, who
really
knows
is.
what the rest of this year is going to look like next year. Like, it's crazy what God's doing.
By the end of the year, like, it's amazing.
And being like, you know, in the spiritual stuff and everything, like, I know God's going to use you. And I'm excited to see, because like, I'm not trying to put myself like, oh, I know, but like, I feel like I have a good sense of character. I have a good sense of like, who's going to do what, honestly. That sounds like an accident. I always have like a good idea of like who's going to, but when I look at you, I'm like, when I hear you talking, I'm like, I know you're going to be a strong leader. Like, you really are. You're going to like really help like girls out there for real. And that, like, you see that? Do you see that too?
Absolutely.
That's something that God had put into my heart too. He was like, I'm taking you, because a lot of, like, girls, like, they go through heartbreak a lot. Like, you know, they go through things like that. A lot of, I feel like I see more women in like witchcraft and like things like that than I do the males. And like being able to have like a testimony like that, like, I know like God brought me, like, he takes what was meant for evil and uses it for good.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Things that you overcome, you have authority over, you know? So it's very true. Like, now you're going to have authority over that specific realm, which is awesome, because there's so many women, ex-New Agers, that are getting saved, and they need the, you know, women who understand their lingo, understand where they're coming from, to help disciple them and mentor them, because it's really hard when you're coming out of that lifestyle to coming into the church and nobody understands you. Like, nobody relates to you.
Exactly.
It's like the hardest thing ever.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
to have someone who's been through it, gone through that shift, understands where you're coming from and like everything. So that's going to be you. You're going to understand where these women came from. You're going to understand how to talk to them, and you're going to understand how you can help them through certain things. But it's awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on,
Of
just
course.
sharing. Like, I feel like I said, there's so much more that you can share, but it's so
Yeah.
crazy just the amount of time, like only a couple months really. Like even we've
Yeah.
known you, but it feels like, I don't know. I just feel like we've known you forever. Like it's
Yeah.
so crazy. And like your story is like so special. And I'm just excited. Like I said, I'm excited to see like the type of leader you're going to be because I already see it like all over you. Like it's so good.
All glory to God.
So good.
He's doing
So good. We're so proud
much.
of you. Honestly, we're so
Thank
proud of you.
you.
And I'm sure we're going to see you more on
Makes me
social
cry.
media.
Yeah.
I told her that like she's all over the Harvest Time. Like it's so cool to see you
Yes.
always in the front worshiping and stuff like that. So we're just really, really proud of you. But with that being said, guys, man, share this video, share this with somebody. She's got an amazing testimony. I'm sure someone out there can relate to this. Share this on your social medias. Follow us on Instagram, Against the Grain Podcast. Check us out, share our stuff. And God's using this podcast really for his glory. It's been so amazing to see the testimonies, everything. But again, we encourage you guys to share this with somebody because we do this and we don't just do this for the clicks and the likes and all that stuff. We're really doing this podcast to help people, to change people's lives, for them to see something or hear a message in a different way where they're not going to come to church, but they're on scrolling on social media. Again, we appreciate all the support. With that being said, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Bye.